wind had worked through the night. By morning, it had stripped the old snow from the ridge and left the ground open in broken places. Dark needles showed through the crust. Stone showed where drifts had been torn thin. The spruce trunks stood black and still, but the air between them was moving, carrying every old mark back to life. I was traveling below the timberline with my head low. My stomach had been quiet for too long. Not empty enough to make me reckless, but empty enough that every scent had weight. Squirrel, frozen hair, old elk hair caught on bark, the dry musk of deer that had passed before the storm hardened the ground. Then another scent cut across them all. Fresh. Female wolf. Alone. I stopped with one forepaw still lifted above the crust. The track crossed my path from the north slope and angled toward the ridge saddle. It was not hurried, not weak. The paws had pressed cleanly into the wind-packed snow, lighter than mine, close enough in time that the edges had not yet softened. I lowered my muzzle to the print. There was spruce pitch on her fur, cold stone, a faint trace of old blood that was not fresh enough to mean an open wound. She had moved through hard country before reaching this place. I did not know her. I knew only the line she had chosen. The trail led across a boundary. It was not a line a human would have seen. No fallen branch marked it. No wall stood there. But the spruce beside the saddle carried old urine from wolves that traveled together. A rubbed trunk held guard hair from a heavy male. Beneath the wind, the ground still carried the layered scent of a pack. I stood on my side of it and watched her prints continue through. The safe path was behind me. The fresh scent was ahead. I had crossed boundaries before. Some were old enough to fade. Some were weak enough to test. This one was awake. And she had gone through it alone. I did not rush after her. A wolf that rushes into another pack's ground leaves too much of himself behind. His breath, his broken crust, his fear if fear takes him. I moved where the snow held firm and kept to the darker places beneath the spruce. Her trail was careful. She avoided the open bowls where wind carried scent too far. She crossed frozen root lines instead of deep powder. Twice she left the easy path to pass through close timber where her pale hairs brushed the bark at shoulder height. She was smaller than I was, lighter in frame, but she did not move like prey. A rabbit's trail is nervous. A deer's trail is shaped by hunger and fear. Hers was neither. It read the land. It bent around exposure before exposure appeared. It held to cover without wasting steps. I followed far enough to know she was still ahead, far enough to know I had crossed too deep. The pack scent strengthened below the saddle. Fresh male urine marked a leaning spruce where the bark had been torn by claws. Snow had been kicked backward in a scrape. A second wolf had passed there after him, and another after that. Their ground, their claim, their winter held in the trees. A howl came from the lower timber. It rose once and thinned in the wind. Another voice answered from farther back. I froze in a stand of young spruce, ears turned, body low. The sound did not come for me alone. It belonged to their movement through the valley, but I was inside the scent of it now. I looked ahead. Between the trunks across a shallow draw, something pale moved through shadow. Only a shape at first, a shoulder, a narrow head turning into the wind. A tail held low, not tucked. Light silver gray and cream against the dark spruce, gone almost as soon as I found it. She had stopped. Not long, not with trust. She had read the air behind her. I stood still. The distance between us stayed open. The wind moved from her toward me, then shifted and carried me toward the slope below. That was dangerous. My scent would not stay hidden if the current turned again. She looked once toward the lower timber, then she moved on. I followed only after her shape was gone. The ridge narrowed where the saddle cut between two shoulders of stone. There was no clean crossing. Snow had hardened into plates over rock. Spruce roots curled out of the bank like old bones. Below, the timber dropped steeply into a shaded basin where the pack scent pooled thick and warm beneath the cold. Lyra had slowed there. I did not know her name in the way humans give names. I knew her as the lighter wolf ahead of me, the one whose scent had crossed the line before mine. But for the trail I followed, she became one shape in my mind. Lyra. A soundless mark for the one who moved beyond the boundary. Her prints crossed the open saddle and then turned toward a broken line of stone. Mine stopped at the edge. A dark male appeared below. He came out between spruce trunks with his head high and his tail stiff. He was too far for teeth, close enough for warning. Behind him, something else moved in the timber. Another wolf, maybe two. The wind would not tell me all of them. I could go back, but to turn in the open was to show my side and leave my scent heavy across the saddle. I could rush forward, close the space toward Lyra, force myself into her trail and the shelter beyond it. But a lone wolf pressed too close becomes another danger. She would have to answer me, flee me, or waste strength avoiding me. The fastest path was wrong. I chose the slower one. I turned toward the broken rock below the saddle, where the snow had crusted over narrow shelves. It was a poor route. Stone rubbed against my ribs. Ice cracked beneath one paw and sent shards sliding into the timber. I held my body low and pushed through a gap where only hunger-thin flesh could pass. The male below barked once. Not the bark of a dog. Short, hard. A warning meant to stop movement. I kept moving. The rock cut me along the lower shoulder where my coat had thinned from winter. Heat opened under the fur, then cold touched it. I smelled my own blood before I felt the full sting. Lyra stood ahead near the twisted spruce beyond the saddle. She had not gone far. Her ears were forward, then turned toward the pack below. She did not come closer. She did not call. She did not wait like a thing that belonged to me. She only held her ground long enough to see what I would do. I came out from the rock slowly, blood dark in the fur above my leg, breath low, head lowered. Between us was open snow. Behind me was the claimed valley. Below us, the male moved again through spruce shadow. I did not cross the last distance to her. I stopped. The wind ran over both of us and carried our scents apart. That was the only safe trust there was. The pack did not climb higher. Their voices stayed below, passing through the timber in broken pieces. They had no need to spend strength chasing a lone wolf into bad wind if the boundary had already spoken. Their claim remained behind me, alive in the trees. My shoulder burned where the rock had opened it, not deep enough to slow me badly, deep enough to remember. Each step pulled the skin under the fur. Each breath carried the iron taste of my own blood back into my nose. Lyra moved to the edge of a stand of old spruce. She was clearer there, lighter than the slope. Pale silver gray along her back, cream at the throat and muzzle, smoke dark at the ears and tail tip. Smaller than me, but not soft. Her body was lean in the way winter makes all survivors honest. One ear held a small notch where flesh had healed. She watched the lower timber, then me. I kept my head angled away from her. Not submission, not challenge, only space. The snow between us mattered. A wolf can destroy a chance by taking one step too many. She turned from me and nosed the wind. For a while, neither of us moved. The ridge carried the pack scent away. Spruce needles clicked together in the cold. My blood slowed under the fur. Then she took 3 steps along the higher line of trees, stopped, looked back once. Not invitation, not promise, just the absence of flight. I waited until her body passed behind the spruce before I followed. The night thinned without becoming warm. Cloud lifted from the lower valley and caught in the black tops of spruce. The ridge ahead turned pale, first gray, then a washed blue where the sun had not yet reached. I found her track again beyond a bent pine. It crossed a patch of open snow and then came near mine where the ground narrowed between two buried stones. For 6 steps, maybe 7, our trails ran in the same direction, not together, close. Then hers drifted ahead, lighter and cleaner, turning through a veil of fog where the spruce grew older and farther apart. I stood at the edge of that morning and listened. Behind me, the claimed boundary was quiet. Quiet did not mean empty. The pack remained below, and the wind would tell them where I had passed. My shoulder carried the mark of the rock. My body knew the cost of a scent followed too far. But the world ahead had changed. It was not safer. It was not kinder. It was only no longer the same empty line I had known before. Lyra moved through the fog ahead of me, visible once as a pale shape between trunks, then gone again. She did not look back the next time. She did not need to. I lowered my muzzle to the place where her track cut the crust. Spruce, stone, cold fur, distance. I breathed it in and lifted my head. The ridge continued beyond the boundary. So did she. And after a long moment, so did I.